One, two, one, two. And we're live. Welcome to Earful of Dirt, the Major League Rugby podcast. Thank you for joining us. And I'm Aaron Castro, coming to you from Arizona. Joined tonight by Victor and Dan in New York, Josh, content editor in Denver. And, Corey, he's just hanging out in Iowa. It snowed today, stuff like that. But hit him up on Twitter at Earful of Dirt. Hashtag EODpod. Also, submit your questions on the live broadcast that we can get after mid-show. So, how's everyone's week been?
Awesome! Good. Pretty good. It's a nice weekend. Relaxing weekend.
Might have to get a new car.
Ooh, congrats.
You got a new car? You might need to get a new car.
By new, do you mean used?
No, new.
Oh, wow. I've never done that. That's outstanding.
Congratulations.
I got nothing else. Okay.
I just hope it's big enough for 5 people.
What?
I just say
it could.
He wants 5 people.
Just in case, you got 4 others.
Why can't he get a Corvette
Mm-hmm.
and just have spot for his chick?
Get a smart car?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I won't fit in either of those.
Oh, okay.
Oh, all right.
Tesla. Teslas are nice cars. You should get one of those.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Zero emission car, except they don't factor in the power plant generation.
It can run off solar. Josh lives in Denver, one of the sunniest places in the country.
Can't beat that.
Got that?
Okay, now to rugby.
All right.
Aaron,
So, for those of you new to the podcast, each Monday night we discuss news, rumors from Major League Rugby, the United States Professional Rugby Union competition. It's a chance to discuss the issues, hear from the league, team leadership, and check in with our friends across the U.S. rugby scene. So this week, what do we got?
So yeah, we got 3 matches to recap. We had Utah took on, I wrote Glendale for some reason, Ontario for their second. They took on Ontario for their second and final match at Rio Tinto. It was live streamed, which is great to see. San Diego hosted Houston for their inaugural home match. The Round Rock Elite Rugby hosted NOLA Gold at their facility. We got a continuation of our 30 tickets to Japan, followed up with the centers. Spoiler alert, we have very similar ideas on this as well. Some more news, views, and abuse, and looks like actually quite a few questions from Bob. One of them actually coming from Bob himself. So why don't we take it from here, Aaron?
So, first half, talk a little bit about the Utah game. The Arrows come in, take it 24-20, but it was really a tale of 2 halves. And the way I got to explain this, I'll get into later when we discuss the second half about, I guess, how Utah was playing. But for the most part, this was a pretty brutal match. What do you guys think? Like, physically speaking.
Oh, physically, yeah. I mean, even though it wasn't perfect, I think Utah still did a lot better. At least even the first half when they were down. They still improved a lot from as they played against Glendale. I felt even though the scoreline was 17-3 at half, it actually felt kind of even, which is kind of strange.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't say – for me, it didn't feel close because of the front row matchups. And I would say because of the scrum destruction. Yet the score was closer, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it felt closer than what 17-3 would lead you to believe. So I guess it's not really relatively close. I don't know what the word is for that.
So the conditions for this game were like pretty bad. I think it rained all of Thursday and all of Friday, and we sort of saw that with both teams' first chances to score came with both captains electing for penalty kicks. Both fly halves, Kelly and Whitby both missed those both missed their first kicks, and then they made their second kicks, which was, for Whitby, it was a lot better of a night than it had been against Glendale. So that's important to find your leg. But, after that, Ontario scores 2 tries before the Utah defense is able to really do anything. And the offense just wasn't getting anywhere for the most part in the first half.
Yeah, definitely in the first half. As if anyone actually watched this, it really took a completely different approach for the second half. That's when it really started opening up a bit. And
Sorry.
Huh.
UCLA calling me for my money.
We just love that when your colleges call you for your money all the time. And I actually
Not today, Bruins.
Yeah, I had when I graduated, my school actually had like a 50 things to do now that you're graduated, and I think number 3 or 4 was to put the college in your will.
Wow. Who does that?
Chilling for money.
People do that. I don't have an issue with people doing that if they really
I
love
believe
the
that,
school.
though. I believe it. I believe they do.
But to tell someone that they should be excited that they just graduated and the world is their oyster, but make sure to put Siena in your will because you might die at one point, and they need that money. Yep.
If I have my stuff to CUNY, man,
to Rooney?
no, to CUNY, City University of New York. Just send it.
You're gonna end up leaving most of your money to Rooney, though, most likely.
Nah, I live at the Kingsborough Community College, my alma mater. Let's go Wave.
Let's go Wave. But back to the actual rugby. So like I was saying, the second half is really when it got a bit more exciting. Pakiafu, I think his first name is a lot longer than just Paki.
Paki Sonasi.
Paki Sonasi. Well, that's not so bad. I thought I was going to butcher that. Pakiafu scored. He scored right underneath the post, and that's when the crowd got really excited because they finally, scored a try for the match. And I'm trying to get my timing right, but it was either right before this or right after this that Rob Brower from Ontario was actually given a yellow card, which I think was for a dangerous tackle.
Yeah, that was. Yeah.
Wasn't it the case? It was a late hit, wasn't it?
Yeah. Except that it was high, but I don't know. I thought he could have gotten away with it.
Yeah, but it was a little late.
Seatbelt?
Huh?
Wasn't it a seatbelt?
No, it wasn't a seatbelt.
It was a seatbelt.
A seatbelt would not get you a card.
Yeah,
it was like high. I would say a little late, maybe, but it wasn't.
Probably a combination of high and late.
Which makes me think that the card was more about multiple infringements.
Yeah.
But the reality was as far as the scrum was concerned, the people that should have gotten cards, since the way they're handing out cards is the Utah front row.
Yeah. Well, I think that this really signaled a switch for Utah because they kind of went on a bit of a tear, and they scored 2 more uncontested tries, or I guess that's the
scored 2.
They scored 2 more before the other team scored, whatever the actual phrasing for that is.
So they scored 2 tries while Brewer was off the pitch.
Yeah.
So pretty good.
And it happened to be when Utah finally realized that they should be kind of throwing the ball out to their backs rather than just trying to run it through their forwards, which was not their strong set for the match. So it kind of worked out coincidentally that the other team's missing a guy and your backs happen to do a little bit better out wide. This is when the famed Fetu'u Vanaikolo,
oh my gosh,
he's the Tongan all-time leading try scorer.
This is pretty simple. So for this game plan, the way it seemed is I want to say this sort of felt like San Diego against Austin. So you don't have set piece and scrum parity at all, but you need to figure out how to create space and then just get the ball out to guys who can just physically run over people, which is what Hockey and Vetu did. Like this, was it? I think weren't they? It seemed like they were afraid to tackle those dudes.
I would be afraid to tackle those guys.
Well, when you have a back row playing back, yeah, size wise.
Yes.
I said in the match companion that Utah might lose, but you're gonna feel it for a few days after.
Yeah, I mean, he's him and Lasike too did that once or twice, but especially Vainikolo. I think he's the kind of guy who you can clearly tell is very familiar with the sport. So he'll run head first. He doesn't have to think before doing anything, and I think that's the scary part. There's nothing really overly flashy or really, really skillful about him, but he'll run right at you, he'll knock you down, and he'll keep running, and then he'll score, and that's exactly what he did here.
And I think that's a great point, is that Utah has these guys that have played, and they don't have to think. They can just go.
Yeah.
I
think one example is that he tried to do a quick line out or something like that. I forget exactly what happened. Yeah. So he tried to do that. It kind of showed his knowledge. Whereas I would have just stood there and just looked at the ball on the ground. And
maybe actually don't have your foot in, for that. Don't have your foot inbounds.
Yeah. That was the...
I forgot they changed that. Because I'm like, wait, that should work.
Yeah, maybe he forgot to change that too. He grew up on the sport. He's used to old rules, So that might have been part of the issue there.
Good point.
But I love seeing him score. I will say though, and I say this a lot whenever I watch rugby, is that he could have gotten a lot closer to the post when he did score, because a lot of times guys just kind of dive, wherever they end up in the try zone. But there's a lot of space that they could run towards, and Whippy actually missed the kick afterwards. So that was just my only criticism there. It didn't look like there was even a guy really that close. He could have gotten at least 5-10 meters closer, and that could have made a difference, because at the very end it was 24-20, I think. And if he did make it 24-22, maybe it's a different ending.
Well, if he makes all his kicks, it is a different ending.
Well, yeah, that's true. There we go. Yeah.
But
kicks matter.
Yeah. So how about the noise?
Oh, it was great. I loved actually every single scrum they had the Warriors chant or yelling going on, and I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was a jumbotron was telling them to do it, but even regardless, it was great just hearing Warriors just over and over when they were scrumming.
So there was a short press release issued after the game, which I love. It's like, hey everyone, do what Utah's doing here. Issue a 5-sentence press release right here. And the Chris Silverthorne said, he was quoted as like, this Utah crowd was so loud we were having trouble communicating on our radios.
Wow.
And that's tough when the confirmed numbers were only like 45. Well, not only
4,000.
It was almost 5. It was like
4,900.
Oh, okay.
Which is not something to look down on. That's a few months ago that would have broken the record for most fans, but you don't really get loud fans unless you're like an NFL stadium that's full and every single person shouting. That's really when it kind of drowns it out. So that was really awesome to see that.
I
love the fans.
I do like, so it's like, it's funny, so at Houston, they're sort of old school. They're like, hey, quiet, please respect the kicker. You know,
you're like,
I don't care. Because I am, so it's like, okay, so if we're gonna respect the kicker, then at 90 seconds, don't run at him, because you get a minute and a half to kick. So I'm all about, if we're gonna do that, we're gonna do this. But I'm all about being loud, because if it's your home field, we're supposed to have an advantage somehow. If you're playing at home, your fans are supposed to be loud at the correct times to disrupt the capacity to communicate with the other team, right? That's the whole point. So I'm all about people messing with other people's kickers. I don't care.
Well, the only thing Utah was missing was the bottles clinking.
And that's why you call the crowd the 16 man, because they're supposed to have a job as a 16 man and it's to mess up the opposition. So yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, some places like at Thomond Park, I always see TH and it messes me up. I'm just putting that out there. Victor, you probably know what I'm talking about.
Yes, yes, I do. Language, by the way.
Sorry. But at Thomond Park, it goes completely silent, which is awesome. I love seeing that, but not everyone has to do that. It's not the rule. It's not like you have to do that. So if Utah, especially because their fans were loud, they were having a fun time, which, by the way, my favorite fan there was the BYU guy who was wearing all blue, who apparently goes to all of the BYU, I think any games, like basketball, football, everything, completely blue. This big Islander guy, kind of like dancing, like doing like a whole like little Santa Claus thing, rubbing his belly too. Like that guy was pretty funny. So he's my new fan. He should be the mascot. Just putting that out there. That's my opinion there.
I really love that guy too, by the way.
Yeah, he's my favorite.
Awesome.
That guy was pretty good. It's just
pretty good. Hater.
Well, so it's to talk about fan activation. It's funny, you're looking at Twitter. Shout out to Brian Ray for not being into fans going on the Jumbotron and being allowed on the TV screen at home. He's like, no, I don't want to see that. And I'm like, I don't care. I want to see fans getting into it. And
if there was one thing I learned about these two matches, is that people from Utah, more than anyone I've ever seen at sporting matches, games, events, they love being on the Jumbotron. Like, I've seen people go crazy for the Jumbotron, but people from Utah, at least at these two matches, freaking loved it. Like, the second they saw it, they all had dances set up, they all had things set up. They wanted to be on the Jumbotron. And I think that's pretty fun. They got probably the best spirit. So Utah is actually quickly becoming this year they'll be my favorite team, I think.
Your spirit animal?
My spirit, and no, that guy is my spirit animal. The BYU. And the full blue.
So,
I think I actually didn't even finish talking about the game, which this is probably the best part, when it really got back to back. After the Vanicolo try, there was another try that was actually really beautiful, a whippy to whippy connection. Really brought
that was lovely. So, Jared gets the ball,
runs through a couple players too, which I did not expect from Jared Whippy.
That was nice. And then he just, offloads to his brother, who just guns it.
It wasn't even really an offload. It was like a 30-meter offload, basically. Like, it was across the entire pitch. And it was perfect timing too. He drew in as many players as he needed to, so I loved it. So yeah, I mean, kudos to them. I think the commentators, every single time they saw the Whippies together, were saying that they were just practicing those in the womb because they're twins.
That's a good way of putting it.
When you're born with a rugby ball in the womb.
Yeah, exactly. But then after that was actually when the yellow card was done. So Ontario went back to their first half strategy of playing a lot with their forwards and ended up scoring at the 72nd minute. Now these next 8 minutes, it was getting kind of tense, and you could tell a lot of people kind of felt like the match was getting away. Obviously, they were now down 24-20 at this point. But then somehow, and this is what really confused me, it's 76 minutes. Ontario was actually on the 5-meter line, but then one of their players actually took the ball and leaped into Utah, which is very.
Oh, that was the so. I mean, so they get. I guess they get the whistle, right?
Yeah. So Utah got the penalty, even though when I first saw it, because he jumped into Utah and the Utah player basically just like pushed him and just knocked him down as if he was playing football. So it's kind of afraid it was going to go against Utah.
You can't leave your feet, man.
Well, exactly.
You can't leave your feet.
That's like, I don't know.
I was just
what
like,
he was thinking there.
I was just thinking, if we have some players on the Eagles that if they were allowed to leave their feet, it would be nice.
It's for us.
Utah plays. Oh, I guess. What else do we got on this one?
Oh, that was when. So the 76th minute, Utah came back and they ended up actually on, I think, like the 22-meter.
Oh yeah. So we're like, they're like close, and
It almost came through, and really what happened was, like last minute, they threw it out to their backs, got tackled, and then Ontario ended up rucking over them, possibly through the side. I wasn't really sure about that.
I just want to say that's gotta suck.
Yeah.
You're driving, and you've probably got a shot to score, and you get rucked over to end the game.
Yeah. It was really anticlimactic because you saw that and you're like, this is it. Utah has it. They're going to come back. They got awarded a penalty, came all the way back, and the crowd was really into it. And then, it was just sort of ended at the end. But it was a great match overall.
So the front row is kind of, I don't know. I was interested to see Hafoka, but after that, I think it's we are just gonna go Tucci at loose head and McClellan at tight head, because there was a drastic difference in their scrummaging when they made that change.
Definitely.
So Victor, what do you got?
Yeah, and going back on that point that you just made, Aaron, you see that front row on paper, and you say, "Wow, man, arrows are done." And did the Warriors won any scrums? I think they lost all the scrums, did they?
Yeah, I didn't have them as winning a scrum.
No, they won one.
Well, they won theirs, but they won a lot of theirs, but they lost ground every single one of their scrums and every single Arrows scrum.
Seriously, I'm like, dang it. I mean, again, on paper, you think, I mean, if they have players playing out of position.
Not on paper, because, like, you go, hey, that's a big scrum, but they had a center playing loose head.
Yeah, well, that is true. Because, again, they have players out of position. I understand, but I was expecting a little more.
Didn't they have a center playing hooker? Wasn't that the...
Also...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another one too.
Hey, don't forget Tucci's a converted back row too.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, second to turn to prop.
But I mean, a center playing hooker isn't nearly as bad as a center playing prop.
Yeah,
like hookers are supposed to be, depending on the style of hookers are supposed to be relatively dynamic players and be able to run and stuff. Especially like Southern Hemisphere like style hookers, which is I think what they're trying to do.
Yeah,
but they were clearly trying to mix things up for this match too, and see what they got.
Exactly, I'm putting them in different positions to see, mix and match, see what happens through the season. But anyways, guys, so we haven't even mentioned this, but this is the Arrows' first win of the preseason. So
that's right.
Good for them. Good momentum as well.
Friends up north.
That's exactly right, because they're going to be playing against Rugby United in New York, and this Saturday actually coming up. Now, for the Warriors, it's obviously back to square one, because obviously they're trying to get things fixed, because as you probably know, next week they play the Alberta Wolfpack, but we all know it's a Prairie Wolfpack. That's right, for those of you that follow Canadian Rugby Championship. Now, obviously, putting players out of position and the knock-ons and defense obviously influenced the result. Also missing a couple of kicks by Jerry Whippy. But it is my hope, obviously, that the team, the Warriors, that is, it will bounce back. Excuse me, during the MLR season, and hopefully get to maybe be a top 4 of the 7 teams. But I mean, we'll see what happens, obviously.
Yeah.
So any thoughts before we go on to the next match?
So on Friday,
Yes.
on Friday, I had the, I guess, lovely opportunity. I don't know. I spoke on the phone with general manager of the Ontario Arrows, Mark Winokur.
Sounds lovely to me.
Yeah, it was a cool conversation. So basically, they have a bunch of things going on that they're really excited about. But I mean, I guess I had sort of said this because I had heard it from a good source that there were probably some commercial issues that the Canadians were running into why we haven't heard more stuff. But he was like, hey, heard your comments. I would love to reach out and let's have a conversation. I want to share some of the exciting stuff we got going. And I was like, yeah, sure. So we talked. And he said like that the Arrows have been very public, with I guess their constituency and with the league about what they want to do. And they set for themselves a June decision window. And they wanted to do their due diligence on off field when it came to sponsorship, like setting up sponsorships, establishing relationships, home field. They have their home field, right? And they're going to host an event this next weekend against Rugby United New York. And then they also wanted to do their due diligence on the field. They wanted to see if they could put out a competitive side based mostly on Rugby Ontario players, which, as we've seen in 3 games so far, they've put out a very competitive side. And, so for them, they think they're in the right place, and they're going to make a decision. And, it looks pretty good. But, that he said they have the money. They're ready to go. If the decision was, if they made the decision tomorrow, they could jump in and write their check to join the Major League Rugby. So there's nothing up with that. So they just had a model that they wanted to execute, and we're sort of seeing that specifically with Rugby United New York itself, right? Except the difference is that Rooney is already a member, so they're putting together a season on the pitch, evaluating that based on that talent, seeing if they need to add anybody, and then they'll be ready to join the league when they want to be. So they said, Mark said everything's looking good for them specifically. So I really hope that the decision for them is a yes, and that we see an Ontario team in MLR next year.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's kind of just talking about it like it's assumed that they're going to join. They're professional outfit that isn't currently confirmed for MLR. The other one, really, at this point, being Rooney, which is confirmed. Other than that, I think maybe like Chicago or Dallas are potentials, but we haven't really heard too much on that front. Whereas Ontario is actually playing against MLR teams and just beat one. So
and Taiwan with the Sabercats.
That's right, and tied one. So they're definitely in it for. I mean, they're definitely good enough, like you said, Aaron, to make it next year, and they could actually, very well be near the top.
So the Arrows host the Rugby Uniteds this weekend at
York University.
York University, and then the Utah Warriors host a preseason match on their bye, on their regular season bye, which is the first week of the 2018 league year.
The 20th of April.
They play the Prairie Wolfpack on April 20th. So,
yeah. I'm looking
at
forward to that.
Zions Bank Stadium.
Yep.
I think we can move on a bit from here. We got another match that we had. Unfortunately, the San Diego versus Houston match was not recorded for us to be able to watch like the Utah one was. But I guess we only have to wait 2 weeks at this point, so I really can't be complaining about not being able to watch these matches anymore. So basing a lot of this off of the Twitter accounts, and anyone jump in if they happen to have any inside info from anyone, aka Aaron, if you happen to have any inside info from people who were at the match. San Diego hosted Houston. Apparently, in the first 3 minutes, Houston conceded a penalty, and Taj Leader kicked but missed the kick. So it was still 0-0 at the beginning. SaberCats ended up taking up the lead at the 11th minute with a quick counterattacking try, followed by San Diego actually coming back and tying at the 20th minute. So 7-7 here, and really for the next 20 minutes, bit of a back and forth, followed by, I think on the 40th minute was Taj Leader sliding a penalty, and then up 10-7 at the half. I think the try was by Cam Dolan earlier with a conversion from Ben Sema. That's my first half. Aaron, you got a second half recap there too.
Yeah, so Nate Augsburger comes in, scores after the the 54th minute. So the defense for the SaberCats was really there, but for the most part they were kind of limited offensively in that, as we saw in the first half. However, 3 minutes later, Joshua Vesey bursts into the try zone, and it just sort of becomes all SaberCats. And in the final quarter, you sort of saw the depth they've built. Justin Allen bursts into the try zone at 61 minutes, and then Chris Slater, the starter at scrum half, takes a pass off the 5-meter at 70 minutes, and then their final try at the 75th minute. Seemed overall that the Legion scrum really improved a bit. But the result was how we felt it was going to be.
And by the way, the result was 33-17 going to the Legion. Now, as you could probably tell, guys, this match was a lot closer than we thought. Of course, once the last 20 minutes came in, the floodgates open, and the SaberCats were the SaberCats, of course. At least during the preseason, Legion goes 1-1, 1 loss, 1 win. The win obviously over Austin Elite. Now with preseason over, both teams now can focus at the beginning of the league. So on the 21st, NOLA is playing. San Diego is playing NOLA, I should say. And then on the 22nd, no, actually, is it? Yeah. So NOLA that's playing San Diego or the SaberCats. I'm blanking. I think it is like that.
We'll figure it out.
No. Actually, no.
We got 2 weeks to figure this out.
22nd on Seattle, and then NOLA SaberCats. Excuse me, got lost there.
Dude, we'll worry about that on the next show.
No, it's cool. I mean, I'll mention it now. No problem. We got to review ourselves again next week. Excuse me. So no problem.
So yeah. Really not a whole lot without the film to look at here, but the SaberCats have budgie smugglers, so that's kind of cool, right?
We established that one already a couple episodes ago. In case you don't know what that is, listeners.
Yeah, feel free to go at your work computer tomorrow and look up budgie smuggler, put it on full screen.
No, hey, that was for Houston only. This is now confirmed for the rest of the league. Well, I shouldn't say confirmed, but
yeah, Houston took advantage of the fact that they're in a beautiful beach town. Though Houston, I guess, is actually no. Is there really a beach near Houston?
Galveston, I think an hour away.
Hour away. Okay, that's not the same as San Diego as literally being a beach.
Well, you can be in like the metro and somehow be 40 minutes away from the beach. So.
Well, you can see it though. You can see the beach and just wish you were there. Yeah.
So,
on to the next match.
Get yours.
Moving forward, we've got Austin versus NOLA, the preseason derby part 2. edition. 38-10 in favor of the visitors.
38-10.
Yeah, that was, I guess, a little bit better for Austin, but not where they want to be. But for the most part, the first half it was a bit of a grudge match. Teams were playing very wide open and expansive ball games. It's just that their defenses were where they needed to be. For Austin, you had the captain, the second try. They had, fly half Timothy Guillemot, kicks this chip, and Zarnicki and Suniula both have a line on it. And, Zarnicki just signals to Suniula to scoop it up. And he just grabs it and almost gets it under the post. So that was nice. However, Nola answered both of those tries pretty fast. And then, defenses again took over. Going into the second half, it was really close. And then, Austin started subbing in guys. I think Kyle Breitenbach came off the field with a potential injury. I think he's good to go now, but precautions. And, well, Dan, the bench for Nola kind of did what they needed to do.
Yeah, so as you're saying, it was really a great first half job by both teams, with it being 12-10 with Nola in the lead. Great first half. Second half, not so much for both teams. So as it turns out, at the 58th minute of the second half, Nola scored 4 tries in a span of 10 minutes, which brought the game from 12-10 all the way up to 38-10. If my math is correct, that is exactly what happened. But that's a rough patch. Keeping it close for basically the first 3 quarters of the match, and then just like that, kind of blowing up from there.
And this match was actually very, very similar to the San Diego SaberCats match. Again, it looked close. 20 minutes before the end of the game, floodgates open, and like you just said, Nan, in the span of 10 minutes, the goal just put 4 quick tries, ending that match. So again, it was easy work. Again, preseason starts for those teams as well. Again, they get ready for next week. So I already established Nola is playing against SaberCats. Austin plays Glendale, at Glendale, I believe.
Not next week.
Oh, excuse me, 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks. He's just so excited.
I'm so excited.
Excited for MLR to start that he just thinks it's next week.
That's right. No,
sorry, Christmas is another week away, Victor.
Yes, of course. Of course. Well, 2 weeks from now, yes. You're right.
So moving on, let's talk to 30 Tickets to Japan, focusing on the centers this week. So inside center, who do you got?
I think you know who we got.
So apparently all of us have the same person for inside center. Bryce Campbell and Paul Lasike seem to be the 2 choices. Sort of have Will Hooley in here, depending on how we want to play. At inside center, gives you that like 5/8 concept, and that would be kind of interesting. But would you take Hooley over Lasike
for
inside center
or just
for backup inside center if you had to choose?
Well, I was going to take Hooley for fly half, so I guess that's confusing me in my brain.
Exactly, but the question, but the question is the following: have any of you guys ever seen Will Hooley play inside center?
I have never seen him play inside center. In fact, I've never heard of him playing inside center, but it was a topic that has been discussed a lot on Reddit.
Has he played it at Bedford?
He's the starting fly half for Bedford for a month.
Right.
So, but I mean, we saw Mitchell put McGinty at 12. That wasn't really a good idea.
Yeah, I mean,
it's different. I'm sorry, it's different for AJ because AJ actually started as a scrum half, then moving to fly
Yeah.
half. So he's
But
not. You know,
when we put AJ at 12, we saw what happened. It was like there was just no connection between AJ and Will McGee.
yeah.
So, I mean,
I guess if that's the case, then I'd probably go with Paul DeSica because I mean I never even thought of Hooley as
It's a center.
to begin with. I mean, I'm not saying he couldn't play it. My pick for him would be the first backup fly half. But if he's there, and might as well put him in, I guess. I really can't speak on that.
so yeah, it was just a question because it depends on, again, it always depends on how we want to play, right? And well, as long as Will's tackle rate is better than Faz's, we might be all right. But yeah, I think the two I'm taking is going to be Paul Asike as the backup to Bryce Campbell.
Yep.
That's a crazy 1-2 punch there. Outside center, right now, it looks like Victor comes up with this 19-year-old out of nowhere. No freaking way, man.
He's playing well. Why you? Come on.
Yeah, but he's 19, and there's like
Of course, I mean,
there's like five centers ahead of him.
By the way, that's why, because people cannot see this even if you're watching the video. That's why I put a question mark. The kid, again, he's 19. He's super green still, but you don't know what may happen coming up by next year. I mean, I'm sure he's going to play for the under 20s. I'll be surprised if he doesn't.
Why don't you say who you got?
And then from there, who knows? You may fast track the kid, depending obviously on how good he gets, and you may push it into the Eagles. You never know.
So 13, all of us got Marcel Brocky and Dylan Owsley.
Yeah.
I think
obviously Marcel over Dylan, obviously.
Yeah, for the moment.
Thank you, right?
We'll see how the knee holds up and see if it's
yeah,
done
that's
properly.
If Marcel comes back and he's ready to go, I think he's earned his spot. But I also think what we saw from Dylan is that he's got a ticket to Japan.
Oh yeah, I mean
definitely.
I loved watching him play in the ARC, and this is actually something I was going to bring up because we've been pretty much for this entire series of doing this whole 30 tickets to Japan thing, we've really been picking the same players, and a lot of these players also happen to be a lot of the players who played in the ARC. So is this also
we don't really have a lot of centers overseas.
Well, I'm saying in general, all of the players that we've picked.
I haven't focused only on ARC players.
Yeah, well, what I'm trying to say is, have we gotten to the point where there really isn't that much fluctuation with the Eagles, like there has been in the past, or as much fluctuation?
So probably like 2010, I think. Like, so we didn't I want to say, so the 2015 World Cup saw some new blood, but it saw a lot of people retire from international play. So we had, like Tim Stanfill retired. So part of the reason for blooding so many players that first ARC was because like half the squad retired. It wasn't just, hey, Mitchell didn't scout anybody. It was half the squad retired.
Yeah, that's a good point there.
And you had to make a team from ground zero.
When you're trying to do this, I guess tier 1 nations try to go, with an average of 50 caps. We're going to go with an average of like 25, I think, maybe even less.
You might have to go with less.
But I think for the most part, I think like the squad will be very good.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. I mean, if you keep consistency in the team, usually it works to the team's advantage because everyone knows everyone's role within the team. I mean, of course, you have to make changes here and there, obviously, to keep things improving. But if you just keep that cohesion between the players that are already part of the team, that usually works.
So
Especially with a lot of these players playing the same position with their teammates in MLR now with it coming up. I think that's really, I mean, we say this every single week, how excited we are for seeing what MLR can do for the national team, especially in the next 2 years before the next World Cup. We're not expecting to beat England, as nice as that would be. But if we can sneak out a win,
Man.
if we could beat England,
Dude,
that's
if we
just,
bro, if we can pull it Japan, that'll be great. If we can pull it Japan.
yeah, when they were in downfall and we're just on the upswing. But no,
Yeah,
I mean, if we can pull a,
downfall 2018.
yeah,
It's-
we can pull a
it's-
steal against. We're playing France, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're playing
Yeah.
France.
France is just so schizophrenic. I think that would be the upset target.
Yeah,
Mhm.
or is
Or Argentina. Argentina.
which is also known for being so
Shaky.
schizophrenic and shaky too.
Yeah.
They'll
that's
come
right.
out and they'll upset, top 3 team or top 4 team, but then they'll just crap the bed basically.
Mhm.
So,
No, I
but
mean, you're not lying.
the game we gotta win is Tonga.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
seriously.
Which have we beaten
Seriously.
Tonga before?
Yeah.
No.
Not
I'm
recently.
sorry. Oh, okay. I'll take that back then. I'm sorry.
Or years ago though.
It was in the 90s, wasn't
Okay,
it?
I'm gonna make sure I'm not talking out of my ass. Give me a
You do
minute.
that.
Go ahead.
You do that already.
Go ahead. We don't want that. Because I'm pretty sure it was from the 90s.
Yeah, like so. I mean, we've beaten Samoa, a team we've
Mhm.
never beaten. That is in Tier 1, but we've gotten close. Is Italy? Like we've gotten
Yeah.
this
I would-
close.
Wasn't it 22-18, I think it was?
Yeah, it was.
I would really love to see a rematch
Mhm.
with Italy because we played them 2 years ago or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was-
That's about-
They're playing Georgia in November, which is very interesting to see.
Yeah,
But I
because,
want to see Italy.
God, if Georgia wins, I really hope Georgia wins.
Well, Georgia. I think Georgia has beaten Italy before, so
Mhm.
Years ago, though, wasn't it? It's been like a long time since they've played each other, if they've played each other, like the 90s or early 2000s. Or World Cup, I'm sorry. I don't think much about the World Cup.
Mhm.
But not in recent years where Georgia has been making a case for the Six Nations. So that's the only reason
Mhm.
why it's so exciting at this point.
Yeah.
But I would love to see Italy come here and play them. I don't know how the crowd will be, but if we can pull a win from Italy.
So
which
we
is very
played
feasible.
them at Avaya.
And that was one of our most sold out crowds, wasn't it?
I'd have to check. I don't know.
I don't think it was.
I don't know. We can put it here
So-
in New York. There's plenty of Italians over here, so
Mhm. Half
Definitely.
Staten Island can fill the stadium.
but none of them actually know what rugby is, so I guess that's an issue. All
right.
Yeah.
Well. All right.
So,
Let's see.
do
So-
we jump in?
All right, so transactions. So after searching all over the place, I said Kurt Marath was not coming, right? Well, it just so happens that he just wasn't going to. He just wasn't going to to San Diego.
There we go.
Kurt-
That's what you're looking for.
Kurt Marath will be joining Utah Warriors shortly.
And
Fly
for those
half,
of you listening that don't know,
fly half Tonga International.
Thank
Should be a good addition, but they really need some front row help and some probably lock help after Jensen. Jensen's like class, but after him, they need some help.
This was also actually confirmed by Jerem Jordan during the Utah match.
yeah.
I'm not sure if he was meant to say that, but he said it. So it counts for me.
So, that was sort of. I think that was an obvious one. Like we're just gonna say something.
But we knew it because he liked Utah on Twitter a lot.
he
so
liked
it was just
every
kind of assumed.
Utah thing.
So yeah, it was just kind of assumed that, if you like at least 5 or 6 things, you're going to that team.
we really hope that he was going back to San Diego after that stint that he had with the Breakers at Pro Rugby. But oh well.
Well, I mean,
Also-
when I had that conversation with San Diego, and they're like, he's just in a different place right now than they
Yeah,
are.
Utah.
Well, he's not in Utah. He's in freaking New Zealand on the beach. So, San Diego added a young super rugby product who hasn't been in it, but was an academy player in Dolph Botha, and then Lance Lamprecht, who was straight up a Sharks Academy prospect. He's like 20 years old. So
Dolph was a Free State Cheetah, wasn't he? Or am I making that up?
yes.
Yeah, he was.
He was a Cheetahs Academy and Cheetahs prospect. I think he had 7 appearances with their Super Rugby team.
Yeah, and I think he's only 24 years old. So
yeah,
both these players coming in at prop and lock,
respectively.
Two things that San Diego really needed, and they happen to be getting 2, I guess, technically trained props and locks. So that's really good to see. And 2 more South Africans. So San Diego County does happen to have the most South Africans in all the U.S. So good to see more headed out there.
Yeah, I believe that. There we go. It's not too shabby.
Yeah. Moving on from this, we got our tweet of the week. It's a really exciting tweet. It was actually a response by Brett Gosper, who's the CEO of World Rugby. I say it's exciting because it's in response to a picture posted about the Legions match by Chris Cracknell, one of the coaches. Shows the crowd, and Brett's exciting tweet is, "Looks like a healthy crowd in attendance, Chris." So yeah, that's what he said. I couldn't think of anything else this week, and I saw that, so I thought this made the most sense. But it's nice to see the CEO of World Rugby, actually commenting on this. I know he is usually known for tweeting at celebrities and telling them to come to the Rugby Sevens World Cup. But it's nice to see him do this instead. So it's good to see attention on MLR somewhere else in the rest of the world too. Nice transition, yeah.
Yeah, hey, man, that's what I thought.
Trending topics, Josh. What do you got, man?
Seattle Seahawks have almost sold out of their season tickets for the season opener. They had to open up their overflow seating, and as of now, they only have 150 seats left in the overflow seating.
Yeah, which is great news.
Nice.
Unless you decided to buy your ticket last minute, then it's really bad news. Yeah, I think it was confirmed that someone said that it was 3,000 seats at Starfire, which I thought it was more than that. But with the overflow, that comes out to about 3,500. So that's a pretty nice crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good point.
All right. On to our news, views, and abuse. Who's taking over for this one?
So D1A. So the only matches on TRC this weekend are Colorado CSU versus Army and Indiana versus Navy.
That's what it looks like. I checked that before, and I think those are the only 2.
That kind of looks boring.
Well, we all know Army's going to win.
Boring because it's only there's 8 matches, right? And you're only giving them 2. I think Army's going to stomp CSU this year. So, and then Indiana is on the back foot after 3 losses. So Navy's going to go in there and just do some nastiness.
All right. I don't really care what happens this weekend. I'm just really happy that the D1A playoff is back to really all the colleges in one playoff aligned together. It's so much simpler this way.
People still have problems with it.
Whatever.
People are probably-
For those of you listening that don't know, guys, D1A is, of course, the college rugby tournament ran by USA Rugby. Prior to that, there was something referred to as the Varsity Cup, not to be confused with the Varsity Cup from South Africa that I mentioned a couple of episodes ago. And that one was independent, and you had BYU and Cal, St. Mary's, a couple of other universities. And that one's scrapped. Everyone else is now back to the D1A. Really happy about it.
Yeah, the bringing D1 a unified D1A was really important to college rugby in general, and the Varsity Cup was really to an extent a weak product. It didn't bring together the 16 top programs in the country, so. Which was, my biggest problem.
Mhm.
Everyone's biggest problem, really. It's also just confusing because there are two different top championships, and you don't know which one. I guess there's two national champions, so it's kind of, I guess, confusing in that sense. But now we can actually have a real, I guess, sort of like a March Madness kind of playoff, and see who really is the best college. My money's on St. Mary's.
Seriously, they're killing it. Actually, they played Cal last week and beat them. Speaking of
Oh
which.
yeah, that was an
about that.
intense game. That was on Flow Rugby. It was, it's pretty
21
awesome.
to 12, by the way, the score 21 to 12.
It was pretty awesome for the most part.
Completely forgot about that.
So, if anyone's never been to St. Mary's, they have stands on one side and then a hill on the other, so you can sit in the grass. Really nice spot. So, with how many people were sitting in the grass, though, that must have been a sellout, probably close to like 6,500 because they have capacity for 55 there. And then moving forward is that local broadcast deal with AT&T got done. So every team but San Diego has AT&T as their local partner. San Diego has a channel called Your View California, which is available on Spectrum and Cox. So
I'm sorry, I found that funny. You just shout that out like that.
You're so immature.
We were over this a couple weeks ago, so I tried
Yeah.
COX, okay? COX.
And then, according to Sports Business Journal, USA Rugby will sanction Major League Rugby. I have solicited for a press release on this. I'm told USA Rugby should be releasing something this week.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
It's good to
So it's
hear.
like great news.
And actually, I forgot to mention this, but on the local broadcast deal, this is essentially just making sure that if you are watching locally, like if you're in Utah or Seattle or Glendale or Denver or something like that, and you want to watch, but you don't have ESPN and you don't have CBS, you can still watch the non-games of the week for your team. So I guess it's kind of like baseball, or like it's just like an in-market option just to make sure you have the availability. Someone like me in New York won't be able to watch on these channels, but Josh, who's in Denver area, I don't know actually exactly where, he could just turn on TV and it's like a my local channel or something like that, and then the game will be on there.
Hey, I get Glendale and Utah.
That's nice.
And then if you live in Houston, Austin, New Orleans markets, you get all three.
Oh,
Really?
that's nice.
Well, I didn't know that. Wow, that's
we
even
go.
better.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to move to Houston.
H-Town.
Seriously.
Moving on to questions from Bob. Corey.
Oh, hey, Corey. I think, Corey, where are you?
Corey.
You're live.
Corey.
Corey.
Nope. By the way, he's talking and we don't hear anything. He just says hello.
Question from Bob number 1. Where is Corey?
Just a moment, everyone. We're having technical difficulties.
All right, so while Corey's figuring this out, the first question from Bob, coming from the Rugby Evangelist, which is our friend Grant Cole, formerly This
Hello?
Is Texas.
Hello?
There we go.
Oh,
There we
my
go.
gosh. Oh, there we go.
Oh gosh, I thought something happened to me.
My microphone failed on me there for a second. I am so sorry, everybody. Dan, you were doing such a great job. Finish up that question.
Yeah, I'll finish up this first question. So from Grant Cole, the Rugby Evangelist, which teams are deep enough to make it through the injuries of April and May, then survive the Reg 9 window of June? Which teams are definitely not deep enough to do the same? Questions out there. I know someone has an opinion.
So I said Glendale and Houston have the depth to survive the whole window. And I said the teams that didn't were San Diego, New Orleans, and Canada, provided, certain people get called up.
And by Canada, I'm assuming you're referring to Seattle Seawolves.
Wow, I messed that one up, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
See, by Seattle. So with
Canada Seawolves.
With Seattle, you have a bunch of Canadian players that will get called up, or should. If they don't, Kingsley Jones is probably on his last legs because he might be on his last legs now.
He just got hurt.
Yeah. Then New Orleans, they've got 2 Canadians. I know Howard wasn't called up for the ARC, but I also watched Ray Barkwell play like 480 minutes because Kingsley had no confidence in the backup. And we've seen Howard play, and Howard is so far in the MLR in preseason, he's getting after it. Like, this guy's ready to go. Earned the vice captaincy of his team. So let's just do it. Get it done.
I think the Canadian Seawolves will be fine. My only worry is their backs, considering most of their signings have been forwards.
All right.
I think I agree with you that Houston will probably be one of the best for this, and that's specifically because I don't think that there are really that many capped Eagles who are playing for the SaberCats who are at least still active. Yeah.
Well, I think so. You've got a bunch of guys that have been in the system that are still young. You've got Zach Pangilinan, you've got Pago Haini, and you've got Kyle Sumpsian. And then you've also got Matt Truville. And if things go well, we could see, Paul Mullen called into the squad.
Yeah.
So I think first of all, I think they have the depth, if needed, to survive based on how they've selected players. If players weren't selected, then they have even more depth, and they don't have to survive because none of their players are gone.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I really don't think that there's going to be many, or maybe 1 or 2 at most from Houston. I mean, Glendale's going to have a lot. San Diego's going to have a lot taken out too, because I think they had 8 capped Eagles announced, and 7 of those were on the ARC roster.
They had 8 guys in the ARC training squad. So not all of those guys obviously played, but they had, 8 guys on the ARC training squad. Yeah. So that's a lot.
Yeah. Utah also doesn't really have any capped Eagles, so they might be, at least in those regards, they might be fine.
Are you? Oh, come on! You just didn't do that.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say that too.
What?
You just didn't do that.
He doesn't know what he did. Come on.
Matt Jensen, Josh Whippy, Angus McClellan, Paul Asike.
Yeah, they don't have too many. Same thing with Houston.
That's not what you said, though.
That's not what you said, man. And if anything, like
tomorrow.
if anything, all of theirs have been, active. All of them.
CK and McClellan were called in, but wasn't McClellan called in later for the ARC?
No, McClellan's been there the entire time. Jensen was there the entire time, except that he wasn't active for games. Siki was there the entire time. And Josh Whippy was there the entire time. Like, you are
4 guys then. Better than San Diego.
Yeah, but Brett, some of those guys were never going to. There were a lot of sevens guys brought into the camp that weren't really going to get looked at.
But so because they weren't playing.
So for San Diego, you've got Dolan, Augsburger, Audsley, Teo,
Sema,
and then Matias. Matias. So you've got 6, and then Purpura played a little bit, but I think we'll see. So you got 6 or 7. So there were a lot, but the whole point of MLR is not to have to call them all up. And Malon Al-Jabori. So, and he wasn't in there, like 8 announced players. So they had, wow, that's actually a lot. So hopefully they had 9 guys make an appearance in the ARC.
That's over twice the amount that Utah had.
Yeah, wow. But you said Utah had 0.
Thank you.
Did I say 0?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like none.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have to listen to that tomorrow and debate them. So I don't usually say definitive things. I usually, and I'm saying it now, I usually just say they don't have many or something like that. So
whatever, Princeton.
All right, guys, moving along. Next question is from, I'm going to try this. I'm guessing on this username. This is J-My or J-Man. That's all one word. It may also be Jamie or J-Man. Anyway, he or she wants to know, what will a successful per-game attendance average across the league be?
3 to 4.
Based on how much money has been thrown into marketing, yeah, that would be that one.
3 to 4 people per game. I think we do better.
3 to 4,000.
3 or 4,000, yeah.
If Seattle is capped though at 3,500 for overflow, that does make it kind of tough to actually get that. I mean, do we think that? I guess one question is what will be successful per game, and the other is what do we actually think will happen?
So, all right. So, successful capacity. All right. So NOLA only has 2,500 seats. Obviously, they have, they can throw out standing room tickets. Before I get lost on this, we have played Tonga 9 times, lost 8, won 1.
There we
Thank
go.
you.
When we beat them,
ESPN's being mean to me right now. But
I heard it was in the 90s, is what I heard.
Yeah. So what are we saying? So the lowest capacity ground right now is NOLA at 2,500. I'm gonna say that they need to sell out, because if we have 2,500 across the league, that puts us 750 ahead of where Pro was, right? But I would like to see 3,500 be the league average, since there are some bigger stadiums. Starfire can be expanded, so maybe they're successful and they throw out, another 1,000 in temporary seating.
yeah.
Or
San Diego can fit 6,000.
Yep, and then Dyer Stadium can fit 6 for Houston. And then Glendale fits 6, and I think the Round Rock capacity will be expanded to 2,800, and then you have, obviously, of course, standing room only tickets. So,
Question.
saying 3,500 needs to be the ballpark number for the league average.
Next question.
I just wanted to weigh in real quick on that one too. I think less than the per game. I think what we really need to do is look at the semis and the championship, and know that if that ends up selling out, or if that's a huge number, I think that would be very encouraging to me personally. So,
I think it's also good to note that we actually have playoffs and a championship.
Yeah.
Which
This is where it gets funny. So, say Utah figures it out, right? And say they're a final team. Do you pull the game from San Diego and put it in Utah? Because guess what? There will be 15,000 people at that game.
Good point. Good point.
I mean,
Because Cal BYU for a championship game drew 15,000 at Rio Tinto.
Wow. Not bad.
Utah's a rugby state. That's
Seriously.
pretty awesome.
United State of Rugby.
Yep.
That was their motto. I don't know if it is anymore.
All right. Smashdom Bro wants to know, we're 2 weeks out, still no confirmation on competition format. And this is something that it's kind of been bugging me too, but are we going to be looking at a strict win-loss record or a bonus point system?
It depends on the bonus point system used.
Super Rugby.
Yeah. So I just don't want people with, one win less, but then moving on because they have more bonus points, per se. That makes sense.
Well, they earned it with the
Well,
bonus
no.
points.
No, they didn't, because they didn't win. Wins matter. I'm American. Wins matter
Well,
first.
if you have 7 teams and you only have 10 games, the difference of one win, it's like in the NFL, you could have a team with one more win make it, but it doesn't necessarily make them the better team. Maybe they just happen to have the easier schedule.
Meritocracy is based on winning games. Come on.
Yeah. So if a team wins and they score, it's 3-0, and that's all they score the entire season. But there's
That means
other
they got
teams-
great defense and bad offense. Welcome to Wales,
Well, they-
2009, baby.
they played a bad team.
Okay,
That's what I'm
so
saying.
but let's say you got 4 and 5 tied at the end of the season, and literally everything's the same across the board.
Well, then I think bonus points is a tiebreaker, period. What I'm saying is, like, if a team has one more win than the other and you're going purely based on bonus points, then
But when there's only 10 games and they're not all playing the same teams as one another, you can make the argument that the wins against one team could be much easier than wins against another team.
well, that's the way it is in every competition.
Well, I don't like it in the NFL. In baseball, there's 162 games, so at least it's evened out over a course of 160.
162 games. Need to chop about 20 of them.
No, this is fine.
Now, adding to that question, guys, should MLR take a page out of Pro Rugby and have no draws?
No. What do the laws say? The laws say you can have ties. So, what is it? I've spoken to Dan Lyle about some of this stuff a long time ago now. It feels like a long time ago. It's like, so when you throw out like Super Sevens, like we don't need to create another code of rugby. Use the rule book that World Rugby publishes, and that's how we play.
So, on the subject of pro rugby rules, I do think there's one thing that they actually did kind of right, was that line on the jerseys, that red line on the jerseys to help the refs with the high tackles.
I agree. That's a really good. That's actually a really good
I
innovation.
thought that whole thing on the jerseys was because
As a bicycle company.
It was a it was a
They're
it was a
comfortable, by the
bicycle.
way.
It was a
They're
bicycle.
really comfortable though. The shirts. I don't care what it is. It was really comfortable.
Hey, I just remember hearing that it was to help with the high tackle calls.
That's what I'd always heard as well.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Well, that's so. If you look at the practice kit of the SaberCats, the way they had that designed with the line across the chest was specifically for that. Not every team had their practice kits designed like that. So, just throwing that out there.
So I think my biggest thing is no matter what the structure for scoring on the season is, I just don't want to get into a situation that we had in pro where you've got, Ohio, who really came on in the second half of the season and beat Denver, still managed to not win the championship because Denver won on bonus points. So part of the problem was the fact that they didn't have a championship. They just had the last regular season game of the season, and then they were going off points. So, I mean, how they had it structured was flawed anyway. But from my perspective as an Ohio fan, I was pretty ticked off about that. I'm still... The whole reason I can't get behind the Raptors has nothing to do with the Raptors themselves. It has to do with the fact that they're in the same metro as the Stampede. I'm still that. Well, no. I mean, Sean Davies was with Ohio Aviators. So
Who played with Sacramento.
I'm inclined to follow Davies, but I can't just because of the stupid Stampede beating my Aviators. So
hey, blame Doug and his non-existent money.
So that's what I don't want to see.
What a stinge. All right.
Move to the next question before we start fighting.
Yeah, exactly. All right. This is from Bob Bobberson, our friend Bob, wants to know, what is the future of the PRP? Is it going to be a feeder league or maybe a competing league? Or will teams from it eventually join MLR or just slowly be cannibalized?
The future of the PRP is that it's a Division I competition in Pacific South region of USA Rugby. So it's just an amateur competition. It's the highest level of amateur competition on the West Coast, and that's what it's going to state. Is it going to be a feeder league? I think all the Division I competitions will become a feeder league. So you have the Midwest Rugby Premiership, you have the American Rugby Premiership, and then you have the Mid-Atlantic Rugby Premiership thing. Definitely not a competing D1. Cannibalized. I guess the players will get poached.
That's what makes it a feeder league.
So that makes that's why I said it was a feeder league. But
PRP actually, when they were getting ready for the season, they actually expressly mentioned MLR and how a lot of their players and a lot of the players who will come to the PRP will be using this to jumpstart into MLR.
Yeah. So the intent was to, get a lot of players on tape and showcase them so that they could get scouted. And for those players that are older that aren't going to, I guess, make it or just, want to play high-level rugby, they have an outlet to play high-level rugby. So.
Cool.
Very good. I've got no opinions on that. It doesn't have anything to do with the Stampedes, so... last question is also from Bob, and this one's directed directly at Aaron. So, Aaron, what is your exhaustive list of taco joints in San Diego?
So, it's not exhaustive, but it's
and maybe for those not familiar with this conversation, you explain where this is coming from.
So, I asked Rob Hoadley in my interview with him what tacos, what's the taco place he loves in San Diego. And he's like, really haven't had time for tacos, Aaron. And I was like, all right, I'm going to send you a list, which I've sent to him. The top 3 taco joints in San Diego that I've been
Taco Bell, Taco John's, and Del Taco.
They don't have Taco John's. That's sort of an East Coast, Midwest weird place. The tots at Taco John's are nice though. The best place is
Potato
the tacos.
olays, you mean?
The best place for tacos and carne asada fries in San Diego is the taco stand in La Jolla, bar none. And then we've got City Tacos in North Park and Wahoo Fish Tacos, which is like a SoCal chain. Very good. So,
All right.
I'll keep that in mind.
Aaron came through. Thank you. Bob, I hope you're listening. I think, Aaron, you'll have to tweet that out later.
yeah, I will definitely do so.
All right, guys. That's it for questions. Any final thoughts for tonight?
Actually, guys, I got a question of my own that I got actually from a buddy of mine. Shout outs to Gabriel. He's asking me regarding the D1A college rugby, since we were talking about it just now. He's wondering if only ranked teams can play in the tournament. So, for example, if, like, say, a team doesn't have a rank, can they still play?
No.
Yes.
Whoa.
If they
No,
win their,
give me a second.
if they win their conference,
So
Okay.
So what is it?
there's 7 conferences.
The Red River Rugby champion, both Baylor and Texas A&M were unranked. But by fact of winning their conference, they received a bid. So there were 8 guaranteed bids. The 7 conferences that competed in D1A this year, the Liberty did not. Supposedly the Liberty will participate in D1A spring playoffs next year. I don't know. Don't shoot me. I was told that I had something that was more official than a random article in a random organization that I will not name. But that D1A that the Liberty was an associate member, but that the champion could compete for an at-large berth. There were no ranked Liberty teams this year, so there you go.
Okay.
So if you were conference champion or the top independent, you had an automatic berth. So that was every conference champion plus BYU. And then you had a bunch of teams within the other conferences, like Rugby East had 3 teams ranked. Army, one of those, they're going to play CSU. And then Notre Dame College pulled out of the playoffs. And they were ranked number 10. And then CWU, they won their last game, but they sort of backed into the playoffs because they were getting whooped in the spring. But Notre Dame College did the math, and it just financially didn't work for them for some reason, even though it's been quoted as a varsity program. So
That's sad. Okay, well, thank you for the answer.
I think that was kind of the reason people were having issues with it, is because CSU, while they're ranked, they're not ranked in the top 16.
Well, I think so. I understand conference champions getting in. Like, that's the whole point. Like, that's like an American system, right? However, I think teams like Lindenwood, Army, and Navy, who are ranked way ahead of their competition, should be hosting the game. I think it's like conference champions will push out ranked opponents, yes, but the seeding goes by ranking. That's how I would do it.
Cool.
So,
all right.
Well, I had one more thing real quick. If they have to do that, then conference champions can't play each other. Because who's the number 1 seed?
The number 1 seed is Life. Or not Life. St. Mary's is the number 1 seed.
Okay, because if you had just go by ranking, you'd have CSU playing St. Mary's.
Why is that a problem?
Just saying.
Why is that a problem? I mean, whoever plays, I forget who's playing St. Mary's this week, but they're going to get demolished. So
Hey, I'm only arguing because I went to CSU. Okay.
I know, but you're gonna get wrecked by West Point too, so it's not gonna matter.
Black Knights.
I gotta make some sense of it in my head.
Sure, let's go with that.
Yeah. Oh, one actually final thought I had is a bit personal on this side. So it was actually a shout out to my dad's alma mater, Loyola of Maryland Rugby, who won the NSCRO Mid-Atlantic South Region Championship.
NSCRO.
Yeah, whatever. NSCRO. Loyola is now headed to Life University for the championships on April 27th. I actually don't even know how the format is, but I think there are like 2 days of championships or 3 days of championships that are taking place down there. So congrats to them. Go Slob.
Cool.
And a quick final thought from me. I just, as Aaron mentioned earlier, we're kind of still buried up here in Iowa for some reason. Winter just doesn't want to let go. And it's starting to impact my local rugby plans. I was planning on going out to a high school sevens tournament last Friday, and it was actually snowed out. They canceled it because of the weather. So I thought they probably could have played. I mean, it was in the 20s. No big deal.
Get a plow. Just get a plow.
They're running around. They'll be fine. But for
just play snow rugby.
Yeah, they didn't want to put the kids out in the field.
I know that. So Fishers High School. Shout out to Fishers High School. They've played 2 snow rugby games this year. In Indiana, I'm a friend with. one of my friends is a big time supporter of Fishers, and she posts a lot of photos, and they have played in some nasty weather this year.
Oh, good for them. Yeah, we're not doing that here, apparently. So, hoping for some clearer weather ahead so they can reschedule that tournament, because it was going to be 9 or 10 teams from around the state coming to Cedar Rapids, and that would have been a lot of fun to see. So it's nice to see. We've now got 3 high school sevens teams in the city, and that's new within the last 3 years. So nice to see the game growing locally as well as nationally. It's really encouraging. So keep it up, everybody.
Good. So with that said, guys, I don't think we have any more final thoughts. So let us go to the end of the show. Again, this was episode 31 of the Earful of Dirt Major League Rugby podcast. Thank you guys for joining us. If you haven't noticed, we're here on YouTube live streaming. Our live streams start at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific time. Be sure to join us every Monday night at those times. Be sure to also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Earful of Dirt. Speaking of Twitter, guys, shout outs to friend of the show and NOLA Gold player Vince Jovo, who unfortunately got injured in the match against Austin. He's apparently out for the rest of the season. We're hoping that that's not the case and he comes at least by the end. But the best to him. I know I'm being obviously optimistic,
it's
but
towards Achilles, man, he's out.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to be optimistic.
The partial tear, if things go well, he should be ready to train in September. So.
Yeah, exactly. Or he could do a Manu Tuilagi of England did, goes to Samoa, talks to some witch doctor, and fixes him right up. Think about it. He's still playing for Leicester Tigers and hasn't gotten injured since. So it did work. That Samoan witch doctors did some voodoo on him, and he's good. So he says that he might go to Fiji and do something there, but Vince, go just back to South Africa, bro. Come on, African people invented black magic, bro. You don't have to go to the Pacific for that. We invented that. We black people, bro. Do that. Let's go down there. Nah. Seriously. That was a joke, by the way. Okay, don't take it seriously. I'm brown, okay, so I can make those jokes, just to let you know. Now, in all honesty, hey, also, guys, go and check out our website, earfulofdirt.com, where great people are writing stuff. By great people, of course, I'm talking about Josh. Also, make sure to add us to your podcast feed at iTunes, Google Play, Acast, Player FM, and Stitcher. And make sure to also call us at our voicemail with the number, which is the following, 1720-600-2679. Make sure to leave us a voicemail on that. With all that said, guys, once again, my name is Victor. Again, that was Josh, that was Corey, that was Dan, and that was Aaron Castro. And we will see you guys next week.